Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a WOMENACE to society.
Then so shall you be.
Hey, it's Lisa Landry. Welcome back to A Menace to Society. I'm humbled to speak with this week's guest. He's been aptly named one of the best lawyers in America. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jan Schlichtmann. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well. Jan, you're an iconic figure in environmental law, largely due to the Warburn case, but you weren't always a trial lawyer. How did you become a trial attorney?
Yeah, well, what happened was that my father had wanted me to be a lawyer growing up, because that was the last thing I wanted to do. And I was in college, and I actually dealt more with philosophy, and really thought that, but there wasn't too much need for philosophers in the early 1970s. So while I was out in the world, I actually became an insurance salesman to earn a living, and then didn't take long for me to get tired of that. And then I answered a call for an executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union in Rhode Island. And through that experience as the executive director, I got to see lawyers doing some really good things for people. And I really said, well, gee, maybe that's what I want to do. That could be a lawyer that actually does things and helps people. So that led me on the road. And then I went to law school, and the rest, they say, is history.
You seem like you're open to new experiences and fitting in where you can make a difference.
The one thing I have had and tried to maintain is not accepting the status quo. And, so I think my philosophical background, my philosophical bent really, and I'm really coming back to it now near the end of my career, has always kept me questioning. And so that has allowed me, I think, to get involved in things that are more on the cutting edge of the law and maybe different approaches to things. So I am thankful for that kind of philosophical training and thinking that really never kind of left me, and it made me question a lot about how lawyers go about their business, and maybe there's another way that we can engage in the law, for business as well as as a service profession.
Soon after you graduated law school at Cornell, you served as special counsel on the U.S. House Special Select Committee on Assassinations. That's kind
Yes.
of going against the grain right there, right out of law school.
It was. I was lucky. It turned out that my criminal law professor, Professor Blakey, was turned out to be. He worked on the Omnibus Crime Control Act, and then he got the job with the House Select Committee, and so therefore, he kind of recruited some of the folks, at law school, and he. He asked if I would, want to do that, and I did. So it was a great opportunity because I got to see, Washington, how agencies work. Because of it, I got to see the inner workings of different, the CIA of all places, the FBI, different governmental committees and everything. It was fascinating work. Got to see an insight into government that I probably couldn't have gotten any other way.
That's really random. You're selling insurance and then you start working with the ACLU, Rhode Island, and then you go on to Cornell, get your law degree, and now you're working with CIA and FBI, finding out about
Yeah.
assassinations. So I got to ask you, who killed JFK?
I think one of the things I learned in working for the, from that level, that if the last person's going to figure this out is going to be government. So it's still the mystery is still unsolved, maybe unresolvable.
That's random. Yeah, that's wild. You probably knew that already when you were being all philosophical. um,
That's right, right.
Jonathan Harr wrote a fantastic book all about you and your crusade against the water polluters in Woburn, Mass.
Yes.
Okay, so that book is called Civil Action. And what does it feel like to have you ever read that book? Have you read it yourself?
Oh my goodness, yes. It was a great relationship that I had with Jonathan Harr. It was a terrific friendship that went over the years. He, I was my little firm, and my two other partners, Bill Crowley and Kevin Conway. We were, getting some successes and getting well known, and as a personal injury firm, and it was really fun. We had a good group of people. Kathleen Boyer, and I just had a whole bunch of great people, Peggy Vecchione, just a really good little crew, and we're having a great time. And then we got involved in, this case. This kind of case kind of captured us, and what happened was that Jonathan Harr just came into our lives as somebody who, was interested in doing a book. He was an investigative journalist at that point, and he just stuck around, and it kind of grew from there, and it developed into a really great relationship, and basically the families wanted their story told, and so because they wanted it told, we basically were dedicated to letting him, watch everything, observe everything, and write it down. I really had no idea that he'd be writing, a really great book. We thought, he came in as an investigative journalist and kind of stayed and turned it into a book, but that went on for years. And it was a great thing, and until he actually wrote the thing down and shared it with us, did we realize it would, this would be a really important, thing for folks to understand how the law works and doesn't.
Yeah, important. That's a great word to use, because A Civil Action is a hugely important book. It's actually required reading for pretty much every first-year law student.
I think that what the magic of the book is, first of all, Jonathan Harr is a very, very talented person. One of the things that Jonathan did is that he was what I call a clean filter. He really just let the characters reveal themselves. He wasn't putting a spin on things. He was just allowing the story to be told, and I think that's his great talent. And I think very few writers are able to do that, and he was. He has a great ear, for the music of what people are saying, and the color and the texture of things. He's just very, very talented in doing that, which brings people in. They often say that, it's a book that people start and they can't, stop reading it. And that's because he's so engaging. So that's really, that was really good. And I also think that it's going to be rare, when I think back on it, it's amazing that we were so open with him. And I doubt very much that, that people can take that kind of risk, that a law firm can take that kind of risk that we did. It was just something that happened, and we were open to it. But I doubt and that made for a really great inside story. I just think it's going to be hard to duplicate that, both to have a talented person like Jonathan, but also to have a firm that's willing to take that kind of risk. It wasn't really thought out on our end, but it was kind of part and parcel of what the families were going through. And so it was kind of a confluence of events. I think it's kind of rare, and I think we all benefited from that, frankly, because of his great writing and because of the family's dedication to wanting the story to be told.
It's a great story with great characters based on actual people such as yourself.
And everybody. I mean, from Jerome Fasher, an unbelievably talented lawyer, a 50-year lawyer who brought all of his experience and talent to represent, Beatrice Foods. Just that we had all these different, kind of interesting characters, all very talented, passionate about what they were doing from their own standpoint, and it made for good storytelling. And he captured it really well. I say people talked to him because they trusted him. So he was really capturing everybody's, involvement and interest from their point of view. And I think that's what makes it good storytelling. Everybody comes off, with these human beings caught up in this, incredible event.
And yet you are the protagonist. So how does it...
I like to think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I like to think I'm the protagonist, yes.
Right. How does it feel, Jan, knowing that your personal and professional saga is so influential in teaching new generations of attorneys?
So it's been actually one of the joys of this whole thing, and one of the important therapies really for this leveling experience. On many levels it was devastating, at least on a superficial level, but I was to come to realize a very enlightening experience. And so it's been very, very gratifying and like I say, therapeutic, because I've had the opportunity to share this experience through the book, through the movie, through my invitations that I've had to speak to colleges and universities and law schools and professional groups and citizens groups, etc. It's been really great as an opportunity to kind of share the experience and to learn from it in that process. And that's been really gone on for my entire career now, during Woburn, after Woburn, certainly up until the present. And I value that above everything else. It's it was a very rich learning experience that affected me on every level, taught me so much, and I value it for that. Very, very painful, bittersweet, but so important. I cannot imagine, my life or career without this, having gone through this experience. It is, like I say, has imprinted itself on me and also taught me so much.
I was going to ask you another question, but now that you say it taught you so much, you said in an interview with the Examiner, the Woburn experience has taught me so much. It changed me as a human being and a lawyer. I'm approaching the world
Yes.
so differently. Woburn taught me
Yes.
we have to figure this out together. What brought you to
Yes.
that conclusion?
So that is what happened. Was I started out with in the metaphor that we're all used to, where the lawyer is the champion, is the advocate, is the champion, takes up the client's cause. And there were some basic things, and I talk about this as I go to different groups, is I looked at facts, science, law, justice in a certain way, based on a system that is conflict-based, a system that kind of rewards conflict, that doesn't bring people together, it actually drives them apart. And through this leveling experience, trying to master it, trying to be, all the things that I was taught, go about my work the way I was taught to do it, go into the system and do what I thought I was told to do, and to do it, full on, 100%, and then at the end of that experience to be basically bankrupted by it.
Yeah.
Emotionally, financially, spiritually. And then when everything was taken away, I was forced to examine that experience and to understand why it was so bankrupting on every level. And then when I did, it changed me so that I could never go back to being a lawyer the way I was lawyering, to go back to the system and accept it the way it was. Now this has, I have paid a price for this, and frankly, I'm happy to have paid it. But I've never, since Woburn, I have attempted to approach law and practice law and be of service to people as a lawyer, but it's gotten me into trouble in one form or another, because I am incapable of going back to the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that dynamic between the paradigm that we're all used to, and having learned from that bankrupting paradigm and trying to do things another way, has constantly got me into trouble here and now at the end of my career, I am looking forward to not being a lawyer anymore, but to actually to be able to talk about it, perhaps to write about it, and to kind of share these things with folks, that perhaps we can change the system, because that paradigm is toxifying. The paradigm is not serving us as we go into the 21st century, and the problems that we have are so deep, so important, and such existential threats, epitomized by the effect we're having as human beings on the climate, on the environment, that system of justice has got to be there for us to help us get to the other end of the century, or we're not going to get there. And I believe now I have to dedicate myself to talking and sharing these thoughts with folks, to hopefully to get them to see that the system that we've constructed it cannot serve us, will not bring us to the place it needs to.
Well, the system is broken.
Yes.
Currently. Do you think that the way that the system is set up, meaning, we put, as Americans, we put more money into our prison system than our education system?
Yes. So that's really a symptom. What you just said is a symptom of an underlying pathology. When we had our revolution, we began to think about, a system of government which it's not, a top-down, authoritarian, secretive, ritualistic, king-based.
Mm-hmm.
We rejected that. And that was revolutionary. And a lot of the folks who came up with this revolutionary thinking were lawyers who understood that there's no good king, that there's no benevolent dictator or autocrat. They're all bad, because at the end of the day, it's going to be of, for, and by the people. So we changed the executive form, the representative form, which have deep problems on their own, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But we did come up with this revolutionary thinking. But when it came to the third branch, we stopped. A lot of the reason was because most of the people who were framing the Constitution at that time were creditors. And so they saw the necessity to them of keeping a king-based system, an autocratic system, a secretive, ritualistic, conflict-based system, the one they were familiar with, and they basically ran out of gas or the inclination to come up with another way of having this this part of the system that can help us resolve our disputes, whether they're criminal or civil. And that is not serving us. We're left with a system that has been unchanged for hundreds of years. We've tried to reform it. It's unreformable. We need to transform it. We need to make it a system that lives up to the value of justice. And that means it has to be a system that values truth. And if you're going to have a truth-based justice system, justice based on truth, and you can't have justice without truth, then we have to fundamentally change the system so that it does respect truth and allow for justice to be humane. And that's our challenge, and that's what I want to help others work out. What does that mean exactly? What's the practical implications of that? Because it's so hard for people to imagine an alternative because we haven't put the brain power on it. But it's now time we have to, because our problems are so life-threatening. There's such an existential threat now created by human-made conditions, like what we're doing to the environment and what the environment now is doing to us, that we can't afford not to do this. But we've got to put the brain power and the creativity and have the courage to rethink things so we can transform this system.
Now, let me understand this. Are you kind of saying, sort of, that our judicial system is set up by bankers? Like the old
on
school.
one level, you could say that the system is basically the system that came out of our revolutionary thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We did not apply revolutionary thinking to the third branch, to how we resolve disputes. And a large part of that is that the system is there. It looks at the use of power in an autocratic, top-down, ritualistic, secretive, conflict-based way. And that favors predators who are trying to collect debts. And one of the major problems that society had as America was beginning its revolutionary experiment after the Constitution came into was, in fact, this whole issue of the creditors versus debtors that informs so much of our law and how we resolve disputes, because most disputes are basically creditor-debtor based. And so the legal principles and the way we resolve it is seen through those lenses. We have to have a dispute resolution system that actually looks at dispute resolution, not dispute termination. And there's a big difference between those two things. We have to see a legal system, as Berger said, Chief Justice Berger, of all folks, started a revolution in thinking in the 1980s when he shocked the American Bar Association and said, this system we have is conflict-based, and it's not doing, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. We need to be healers of the law, he said. Mm-hmm. Looking at the law as a healing thing, that when there's a rift between parties, we need to heal that rift. Lawyers as healers, a total different metaphor. Not lawyers as conflict purveyors, not lawyers who make a problem worse by, a conflict, by adding more conflict. And every aspect of our system is conflict-based. So if conflict is the disease that you're trying to cure, you have to realize that trying to cure conflict by adding more conflict is not going to get us there. It's only going to make for more conflict. Conflict minus conflict equals resolution. Now that was the kind of thinking that Berger, started in the 1980s for people to begin to think. That started the whole, mediation revolution, to begin to think of mediating environment, which is a totally different than a conflict-based environment. It's sitting at a table where people sitting at a table respect each other enough to sit at the table and to talk things out. It's with a third party there, not as an authority figure, but as a helper, as a healer, to bring the parties to understand what happened and what should be done about it. That's a total different model and metaphor than the one enshrined in our Constitution.
Well, wait a minute. If we have more mediators, how are we going to have billable hours?
Well, one of the things that lawyers find and have found over the last couple of decades, because most lawyers were didn't want to go into mediation, were kind of terrified of it, weren't even quite sure what it was. But as lawyers have gotten into mediation, it has changed their lives, because it is transformative when a lawyer goes through a mediation process and begins to understand how the magic that happens when people solve their problems, it changes how they think about themselves, because conflict is a disease. And when lawyers get involved, the biggest problem that lawyers have when they represent other people in conflict is they get succumb to the disease themselves, because the system engenders conflict. You don't have to practice law more than 5 minutes to know that. When you take up a client's cause under the paradigm that we have, you immediately, each client that you get is in conflict, and then you're in conflict with other people who you've never known before, but
Right.
now all of a sudden are fighting over procedural issues, over substantive issues, over who's going to win and who's going to lose. It's a very toxifying experience, and it toxifies the profession. It leads to, alcoholism and drug addiction and depression on part of our profession. That is a major problem for us, for lawyers, because it is a toxifying, sickening way of approaching life. And when they get to go through mediation, they're really an opportunity to detoxify, to look at problem solving as something you do together, not something you do, use of truth, not as a weapon, but something as a healing thing, to bring us together, not to drive us apart. And that could also have meaning for our politics.
Yeah, I like everything you're saying. I believe you're completely correct. Because if you're just fighting against them, you see everybody as a them instead of it all being us
Right.
together. Yeah.
It's a wonderful moment. I've gone through it myself personally, and I have to relive all these things I'm talking about personally, like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm often attacked, and I get involved in the conflict thing. Trust me, this is happens to me every day, like it does to every other practicing lawyer. But the wonderful moment comes when you resolve a dispute. You are no longer feeling threatened. You are no longer in conflict, and it's a wonderful feeling. You feel more secure, and that I've come to realize is the greatest gift that a lawyer can bestow on their client. Because when the client comes to us, they are insecure. Something has been taken from them. Their sense of security, their sense of peace, their ability to go about their life's routine, whether it's business or life, because they're caught up in this conflict most of the time, which actually is an existential threat to their well-being,
Mm-hmm.
to their ability to be able to function. And what the greatest gift that we can give our clients is to restore that sense of security so they can go on and enjoy life. And the longer we don't do that, every day that we don't, we are disserving our client, and our client is getting the sicker for it. And if we throw ourselves into it as well, then we're getting sick, and we're making others sick, and we're spreading the disease. That's what we have to come to appreciate. We must become, like Berger said, healers of the law. Otherwise, we're just spreading the very disease we claim we're trying to arrest.
How frustrating is it for you knowing that you are so empathetic, that you are so compassionate, intelligent, driven, tenacious, advocating for the truth, and yet you had opposing counsel and their witnesses hiding and distorting evidence during Woburn?
Yes, that's true. Now, and I reacted to it under the old paradigm as a champion would, and I said, when my opponent, this very fine lawyer, who's quoted famously in the book, Jerome Fasher, saying that what's truth? Well, truth is at the bottom of a bottomless pit. Now, that metaphor, that thinking of truth that way, so beautifully, eloquently crystallized by him and his words and captured in the book, says everything you need to know about why we have a bankrupting concept of truth. Truth can never be something we think of that can be wrested from its moorings in reality and put in a place where people can't find it. The people who buried the chemicals at the end of the day thought they could do that. But Woburn taught us that buried toxic waste has a strange way of resurfacing. And when it does, we pay the price for having ignored it, for having to think that somehow it went away. It didn't go away. And that lesson, the understanding of the truth, is something that we need to respect. And that truth is something that cannot be used as a weapon. It is not something we can deny. It's not something that we, use to hurt the other. And I was filled with all those, that's how I was conducting myself. Oh, he buried the truth. Well, I'm going to unbury it no matter what I need to do to destroy in order to get it, because that was valuable. And now I have it, and now I can use it against my opponent. When you look at truth that way, you destroy the very essence of truth. What is truth? Truth is our appreciation for our connectedness to existence. That's what truth is. It's greater than facts. It's greater than science. It is the understanding that we are all part of the web of life. So you cannot treat truth like it can be ripped from this web. Because if you're burying it in a well somewhere, what's the well made out of? Lies? It doesn't work. When you think of truth as a commodity that can be hidden, then you do think that if the witness doesn't show up at the stand, then you don't hear what they have to say. If a document is not produced, then it doesn't exist. But of course it does. So when we look at truth that way, when we objectify it and turn it into this commodity that can be bartered, sold, buried, or hidden, we are denying the very thing that we need as lawyers to solve the conflict. Because the only way the conflict can be solved is if people are enlightened about how the conflict came to be, so that we can figure out what to do about it, how to change behavior so that people are not in conflict anymore. And the only thing you can do for that is truth. So when you begin to think of truth as the healing element, right, as the vaccine, as the serum, as the medicine, then you stop looking at truth as something that you can hide or keep from someone. Who would deny someone, medicine if you were a doctor? And lawyers need to understand that as well. Otherwise, we're depriving ourselves and the people we're serving and the people that we think are in opposition of the very serum that's going to allow us to get better and go on with our lives.
Yeah, because then you're just polluting yourselves and the whole system.
Exactly.
It's like you're drinking toxic water every moment that you're breathing.
It's exactly right. And that's what the families taught me, by the way. That it is a beautiful metaphor, what you just said. The families taught me that it wasn't the toxic waste. Their children were choking to death on the lies about the toxic waste. And we fool ourselves when we think it was about the toxic waste. No. It was about how we spoke to each other about what happened. When we deny what happened, then we put each other at risk. That's what the families understood at the end. It was not about that they had done this terrible thing, which was terrible.
Yeah.
Which had, huge implications for their community. But it was the inability to speak truthfully about it, which deprived the families of their ability to get back their sense of security. To the fact that we would learn from this and that their community would be the better for it, and others would be the better for it. The denying of the truth of what happened, the inability to respect it, to talk about it, to accept it, and then to build on it, was the greater threat to their security, even beyond this horrible, incomprehensible tragedy visited on them. And that was really the lesson of Woburn. So going back to why Jonathan Harr was invited in, it was because they understood that this was a story that needed to be shared so that other communities could learn from it. And they have. I mean, because of their generosity, their understanding of that, and because of Jonathan's talent, this story has been shared with tens and tens of millions of people.
And Ann Anderson,
making
too.
Us better for it.
Yeah. She seemed like a really remarkable woman.
Yes, Ann Anderson, absolutely, an unbelievably, fighter,
Mm-hmm.
a woman who wouldn't take no for an answer, a woman who, said, I need to have answers to these questions, and she challenged everybody. She challenged politicians and scientists and doctors and experts.
Her minister, her
political
husband,
leaders and lawyers,
everyone,
including myself.
Yeah.
And Donna Robbins, the healer among the group, who kept the group together, to make sure that people, would not turn on each other under stress, as people often do in these situations. And so you had really great people who kept the group together and kept their eyes on the prize, which was understanding what happened and what should be done about it, and never giving up, knowing that you can't give up because the future's at stake.
And think about the outcomes, even though you didn't get the verdict that you sought, and you were advocating for years, and you went through all this personal turmoil and professional upset, at the end of the day, the EPA did fine W.R. Grace and Beatrice Foods and Riley, what, like 69 million, and made them clean everything up?
Yes, and absolutely that. The idea that at the end of the day, there was an acknowledgement of what had happened and a commitment to cleaning it up to make that part of the environment safe. Absolutely, and that is the healing metaphor, right? That's how we have to approach these things. And every day we fight over what happened is a day we don't do that. So Woburn was both taught us the price you pay when we fight over the past instead of doing something about the past is a day delayed in doing something about it. And every day we delay is a threat to our life, to the life of the community and our future. For instance, fighting over the climate change, fighting over what we're doing to the environment. How long can we afford to do that? That's why I go back to the system. If we have a system of civil justice, criminal justice, if we have a system of justice that does not allow us to be enlightened about the past so we can change policy and law and practice so that we can protect ourselves, from the conduct that we engage in that is, threatens us, if we don't change, our ability to do things at scale is turning into an existential threat to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to arrest that. We now have to look at ourselves in a different way. We have to learn from the past by sharing information together, not in a punitive way, not in a way in which we're all going to get in trouble, but in a way in which we're all going to help each other change our behavior so that we can have a future for our community. It's just a different way of thinking.
A less selfish way of thinking. Less selfish.
Yes, a healing way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Exactly right. A way that actually gives us some hope that we can get this done. But at the end of the day, it's about the willingness to be enlightened and to act on what we know to be true, which is Brandeis's definition of justice. Who he got from Disraeli, who told his fellow countrymen that justice is truth in action. It's not enough to just know that something is true. You have to have the courage to act on what you know to be true in order for there to be justice. And that is the ultimate goal here. That's the thing that gives us the best chance as human beings to exist on and with this earth together by acknowledging the importance of truth to justice. The truth is not enough on its own. We have to act on what we know together what is true in order for there to be justice. And as the Bible says, we need that. Tzedek tirdof, justice, justice, there shall be, in order for us to thrive on the land. You cannot thrive on the land without justice. Two or more people, cannot live together without there being some justice. Injustice is our destruction, and only through justice can we live together. And that's why, we as lawyers, that's our challenge, to help people do that.
So why do you think we don't do that more? Is it greed? Is it ego?
So the answer to that question, I think, is very deep.
But you seem very deep, so I'm going to ask you.
Yes. Well, it's very deep in the human soul.
Yeah.
Okay, how we look at problem solving. So, left to our own devices, power, right, left to its own devices, consumes, takes. Power all by itself wants everything and will be happy to leave nothing. So the basic problem with power is on its own, it will destroy. And all of us on our own, left to our own devices, left to our own selfishness, our own greed, all the things that debase us, will destroy us. That's why we need law. And the challenge for law, which is not power, the challenge for law is how do we bring order out of the chaos of power? And for the law then, the challenge for law is its purpose to serve power, because power needs order, otherwise it will destroy itself, or is it to civilize power? And that's the dilemma for law. And too often, as we institutionalize our need for law, we confuse it with power, and it becomes all too often the servant of power. And that is why, at the end, we need a governor for law. We need it tethered and anchored to something that's not power. That's justice, the principle of justice, the acknowledgement of justice, that at the end of the day, it's law's purpose to civilize power by adhering to those things that give us justice. And justice, in the end, allows human beings to live on and with each other. And that's what I've come to appreciate, though, the connection between power, law, justice, and the importance of truth to justice in order for law to not serve power, but to civilize it. And that, in the end, is what will save us or not. And it's up to us lawyers to help people understand that. And we ourselves need to understand it before we can teach others.
How did you come to be involved in the Tom's River case?
So that was a case that kind of found me, as these cases often do. A phone call from a mother from Tom's River who had heard about the Woburn experience and called me and asked me if I learned something, and would I come down and talk to the families down there, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just found as I talked to them that I was thinking about things differently because of the Woburn experience. I was still trying to make sense out of that experience, and as I approached Tom's River, I just found myself doing things differently than I had done before because of all these things we've been talking about.
Right.
And so Tom's River just kind of became a work in progress that kind of informed itself out of that Woburn experience. I didn't want to do what we had done in Woburn. I'd already gone through bankruptcy, didn't want to do that again. And I understood that it was not just financial, or it was spiritual and political and, personal. And I didn't want to do that again. And I just looked at problem solving differently and as lawyering differently, all these things that we've been talking about. And they've been, they've come to me over time as I've tried to make sense. And if I'm going to help people, who am I as a lawyer? What's my goal here, really? What am I supposed to do? And by forcing myself to get into the philosophy of it all, I have, helped myself have a better understanding than I had before about what is the proper role of the lawyer. And I agree with Berger. If we're not healing, then we're not really helping. And if we're not helping, then who needs us? We're here to help. We're here to heal. We're here to help our fellow human beings exist on this earth in a sustainable, progressive way, a civilizing way. That's civilization. Civilization without law cannot exist. But civilization without a law tethered to justice will consume itself in discord and eventual civil war, as has occurred throughout history, which blessedly will not happen to us because we do have a self-reflexive, governor, I hope, among all of us as in a liberal democracy, in which we'll catch ourselves in time, and we will change things, and we will make the law tethered. We will tether the law to justice, to civilize power that's within us all, as opposed to serve our, selfish, greedy, parts of our personality that will eventually consume us, even if we think that, we do it in groups and somehow we think that's better. So if the top 10%, accrue all this power and everything, what does that do to a society when the other 90% are dispossessed? We have so many examples from history. Economic inequality, very hard for a liberal democracy to exist. The more that we have shared wealth and shared resources, it's still allowing for innovative spirit and reward, which we all value, the pursuit of happiness, very American ideal. But that does not mean to the exclusion of everyone else, to the depriving of everyone else of the resources and the oxygen, needed to thrive and survive. Again, these are all basic American principles and values that have to be. We need lawyers to help us figure out and prioritize and apply in everybody's daily life who's caught up when things go wrong, when the business goes bad, when the partnership goes bad, marital, business, or, social or political or otherwise.
Wicked is wicked, and it's not a good thing. It's pretty simple,
True.
Isn't it? Don't poison the water, don't poison children, and don't be wicked.
That's right. And lies are the poison.
Yeah.
Once you recognize that's the enemy, and with lawyers who think that lies are, a useful item, are like doctors who think that poison is okay. It's okay to administer poison to your patient. It ain't. You and they are the worst for it. So, yeah, lies are the enemy. This morning I had this wonderful breakfast meeting with a wonderful lawyer here up in Gloucester, Ken Riath, and he was talking to me about the Truth Commission in South Africa. So here you have an example of what we're talking about. In South Africa, of course, it had, a racism manifest, by orders of magnitude. And that society, in the end, control a few controlling others under, racist policies for a long time, eventually consumed that society so it couldn't function anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then there came that moment, like the French Revolution, right, where, the have-nots became empowered because the haves, fell out of power. They disintegrated from their own, from the weight of their own greed. And a moment came. What are they going to do about it? Now, the classic thing is for the bloodbath, for the revenge, for the doing to them what they had done, to others. They made a choice, and it's fascinating. They said, no, let's encourage a truth-telling. Let's form a truth commission and incentivize people to share the truth about the past so we'll learn from it, so we'll enlighten ourselves, not in a punitive way, but in a way in which we can reach for an enlightenment that can allow us to heal the society so that we can go on. Because if we meet what happened to us by doing to those, who did it to us, we're just going to perpetuate and never get out of the hell that we have found ourselves in. And that was the experiment that they did. Now, it's very challenging for South Africa, but one can only imagine what that society would have gone through if it hadn't taken that kind of a risk, taken that kind of an adventure. That says a lot. The importance of truth. Now, truth alone by itself, just understanding how things that were done and how terrible they were and sharing that with everybody can, in one level, also enrage people and cause them to want revenge. The enlightenment that comes from that kind of truth must lead to constructive action. And again, that comes to justice. You can't just figure out what happened and you have to be enlightened by it, but enlightened by it in which you then do something just. And that justice that now must build on that truth cannot be punitive, because the bargain you made when you encouraged truth-telling in the community for us to learn all the ugliness was that it would not be punitive. Otherwise, if the end is justice in a with thinking of justice in a punitive way, then you're not going to have people willing to tell the truth about what happened, and that means we're deprived of the enlightenment. Now, once you realize that, it changes you, in what you think of what should happen politically with this society. And I think we right now, as citizens in our country, are going through exactly the same thing. And if we meet what we think is wrongs that are being done in our name with wrongs being done in our name, we're going to be lost, and we will devolve into civil discord and into civil war. Cold or hot, it doesn't matter. We have to think in healing terms. We have to change our politics, like our law, in a way that allows us to be smarter about what happened, so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We actually enlighten and bring ourselves to a more just society, where there's economic justice, where there's political justice, criminal and civil justice. All of those things cannot exist in isolation. Like Martin Luther King said, an injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
A recognition that there can only be justice, not injustice.
Speaking of injustices, because you are known to be a tough fighter for victims of environmental pollution, especially, when you look
Yes.
at Flint, Michigan, do you
Yes.
just think, what fresh new hell is this? How is this happening?
So here's what breaks my heart every time we go through these environmental cataclysms, whether it's the near destruction of the Gulf of Mexico some years back, remember those oily times.
Yeah, Horizon.
Did we really learn from that experience? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. In California, when there was the major contamination with gas, did we learn from that? And I think the answer is no. And Flint, Michigan, have we really learned from it? And I think the answer, unfortunately, is no. We are not being made smarter by these experiences, because the way we approach them are vindictive, punitive. We are not encouraging truth-telling. We are not encouraging healing. We're not encouraging learning so we can change. And to the extent that we don't do those things, these experiences impoverish us. They only become more reasons for us to hate each other, to be angry with each other, and to make the communities less secure because we haven't learned from what happened so that other communities will learn from it. That's the paradigm I'm trying to break out of. That's the paradigm I'm hoping lawyers can help communities and our fellow citizens and the world community break out of. Not this way of looking at things in which conflict is met with conflict, where truth is looked at as a weapon. All of these things, to me, they're all of a piece. So yes, if we don't learn from why these things together, how these things occurred and how we can prevent them from occurring in the future, then the history will repeat itself. We're not going to be helping each other by hurting each other over what happened. It's that simple.
Thank you so much, Jan Schlichtmann, and thanks y'all for listening. Please join me at lisalandry.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You will know when each new podcast drops every Womanist Wednesday. Shout out Ari Bear. Something about that truth, son. It just always rises to the top.